Have you ever walked into a room and just knew something was off before a single word was spoken? Or maybe you've been out in the woods and stopped walking for no real reason at all. And then a second later, you looked over and there was an animal standing right there staring at you. Or think about this one: you bumped your knee, and the very first thing you noticed was, without thinking about it, you put your hand right on it. Not a pillow, not an ice pack, your hand. Why is that? Today's episode is all about why that happens. Because what you're doing in every one of these moments is real. You're sensing energy and life force, and you've been doing it your whole life without really giving a name to it. Today, we're going to give it one. And more importantly, we're going to start walking that sense back on purpose. Welcome to Mystical Journeys with Jase. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. We've been working on some initial foundations of things, starting to get some of the basics down and getting your life path a little bit more in order. Now we're going to take a slight course correction. We're going to start talking about something that everybody talks about at one point or another whenever they're focusing on their spirituality, and that is life force. Some people call it soul, some people call it ki, that's spelled QI. In movies like Star Wars, it's been called the Force. So today I think it's a good day to start to discuss the many forms of energy that are actually out there. Some of the things you can do with it, some of the things to help show you that it'll exist, some of the ways that people have tried to record it, some ways that people have tried to modify it, and some ways that people have tried to enhance it. All right, so let's get started. What is life force? For the moment, I'm going to start with maybe a bit of a darker subject. If you've ever been to a funeral or something like that, and you see a person that's laying in the casket, let me ask you kind of a simple question. Do you notice that there seems to be something missing there? Yes. The very essence of what made them a person, just to the average eye, just seems to no longer be there. Why is that? Why is it that something that was alive one day and then one day it wasn't? Yes, there could be a physical function that's just not working correctly. Yes, that's correct. But what about the rest of it? How is it that that person is just not there? I remember a couple of days before my father had passed. He was kind of full of life. We ended up having a private conversation with him and I. And one of the things we talked about, I'd said to him, Dad, this isn't the end. And I said, your energy is going to continue going on. And he said, he certainly hoped that it was true. Well, next morning, when the hospital called and said, look, you've got to come down here. Something's happened. We need you to come to the hospital right away. I just happened to be the closest person who was there. So I went down to the hospital right away. When I got there and I got to his room, yes, there was a physical form that was there, but he was just not there anymore. But for lack of a better way of describing it, it was nothing more than the resemblance of somebody who I'd known all my life. So let's move forward into a happier subject. Okay. Where are we right now? Some of us are in our cars or listening with our cell phones. We are breathing and moving along without any types of delays. We are just going along, going about our day. Sometimes we get held up, sometimes we don't. We just keep on moving along. All right, let's get into the next part. Energy is all around you. Every day you walk past people, there's a sense to them, and there's something to them that seems like, hey, there's some type of energy that's there. There's some sense that you may not be able to understand it. So let's talk a little bit about that energy. To the ancient Chinese, they talk about qi, and that's spelled QI. They talk about the ways that energy can be moved around and the ways it can be redirected and the ways it can be balanced. But let's just keep this really simple. You walk close to a person, and guess what's happening? You don't just notice their warmth, but you get maybe even a prickly sensation on your skin. Something's there. Is there a person there? Is there an animal? Is there something going on? That's just the human body itself sensing another presence of something. There's something that some scientists have done, and you can see this in a very modern times. It's called Kirlian photography. One of the things that they found with the Kirlian photography was that if they take a picture of a person, they're picking up on the electrostatic field around them. And in that picture, it can also be interpreted with certain colors and it can mean certain things. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm an expert at this, but I am going to invite you, if you like, feel free to go research that and take a look into it. It's kind of fascinating. But what they're noticing is that there's something around that person. So even if we don't get into the details and the colors and all those things like that, they picked up that there's a fact that there's something around that person. That's something that's important. If you take a look at some of the ancient drawings, what is that shining around a person's head? Why is it at the center of their chest they show a picture of somebody's heart just exploding with love? I believe that there are some nice little examples that people were starting to see things more than what they've been told to see. Now, in a future episode, we're going to get into something called the chakra system. And I will go through each and every chakra and give my viewpoint on it. In the shamanic world, sometimes they call the chakra system the seven tunnels of power. So we will get into that in a future episode, but that's just something for you to look forward to. But today, let's just get on to the basics about life force. Exercise one, feel your own energy field. What I'd like you to do right now, I'd like you to put your hands out in front of you, about maybe 2 feet away from each other. Let your hands face each other so you've got a pretty good distance between the two of them. Okay, you got that ready? All right, let's go through the exercise. You hold your hands out in front of you, palms facing each other. Like I said, about 2 feet apart. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Get your thinking cleared up. Maybe even taking a second breath for yourself so you're calm and ready. Now, slowly bring your hands together. All I'd like you to do is just notice when it seems like you can sense the other hand. When they get closer together and you can sense it, stop for a second. Take a moment and just feel that. Then move your hands away, then back, then away again, then back. Nice and slow, because I want you to try to sense it. If you end up touching your hands together, that's okay. Some of this takes a little bit of time. At some point, when you feel like you can't, just start to sense the other hand, open your eyes and take a look at it. Then close your eyes again. Move your hands closer together. When you feel that sense, open your eyes again. Look where you're at this time. Are your hands touching? Are they apart? Are they over top of each other? Do you notice that maybe there's something a little bit different there? Why didn't your hands touch this time? How come your hands didn't touch every single time? I mean, remember, people just say we're purely physical beings, right? So how is it that your hands found a way to sense each other without your eyes being there to tell you, oh, I'm about to clap my hands together? There's a sense that in all of us, we know what the energy of something feels like when it's around us. Everybody has it. Even when you think you don't, you have it. I'm going to ask you to take a minute and think about how many examples you've heard people say, I had this feeling somebody was watching me. I had this feeling something was in the room with me at night. I could just sense there was an animal in that woods. And there, when I looked, there it was. I walked into this very dark and spooky house. I could just feel there was some presence inside the house. I think it might have been haunted. Think about that for a second. These are all very normal things that people say. People talk about things that are going on without realizing that these things are actually happening. Energy in everyday life. Your body knows. Let me give you a nice, fun example about energy and life force and how it actually is right there in front of you every single day. I want you to take a moment. Think back to when you were little. You were around your mom. Maybe something happened where you bumped your knee or something like that. When you bumped your knee, what did you do? Did you go grab a pillow and put it on your knee? Did you grab an ice pack real fast? No, you put your hands on it right away, right? Well, think about that for a second. You just sensed a couple minutes ago that maybe there's some life force or energy between your hands. Now, when you were younger, you took your hands and you put them right on your boo boo immediately. And it felt a little bit better. Why not grab a pillow? Wouldn't it have been softer? Hmm, that's something to think about. Okay, here's a really good one. I remember when I was really little, I tripped down the steps at the apartment I lived in. I banged my foot pretty hard. It was hurting, I was limping going up the steps. I walked upstairs, I was crying. I go to my mom. She looks at it and says, well, you know what? It's actually okay. And as she goes, she says, how about let me kiss it? And guess what? I nodded my head. My mom goes and kisses my boo boo. And right at the same spot where the ankle had hit the pavement. And you know what? It actually felt a little bit better. Now, think about that for a second. Just for that fleeting second. Mom did something that was completely unexpected. And for some reason, it seemed like maybe some of the tension came off of it. Maybe it felt a little bit better. I can say it seemed that whatever my mother did made some type of adjustment to that energy. And you know what? I felt a lot better for it. Energy in places and spaces. All right, let's talk about some other examples of energy. When you walk into a house you're not really happy with, the house doesn't feel very happy, right? It might be a neighbor's house, or it could be something like that. I remember when I was younger, I used to deliver newspapers, and there was this place I had to deliver a newspaper to. The couple always wanted me to open up the door and put the newspaper inside. I can remember when I opened that door, it always had this bad feel to it. And I have to be honest, it generated some fear. Why is that? It was just a house, right? There were 30 or 40 other houses I delivered papers to, but what was different about that? But if I compare that for just a moment and think about it, one of the houses, there was a group of kids that used to be there and they would dance and they had a wonderful time dancing inside their living room or out on their deck. Would walk right up there and you could just really take your time and drag your feet when you're there because it was so happy to just deliver that newspaper there. Sometimes I would even talk to the person who lived there for just a moment or two. After I left, it was just a good feeling. And it didn't matter whether anybody was there or not. But let me say this, when the times that people were there, there was always some essence of goodness that was there. Something was there, some energy was left there. It wasn't my thinking about it. I'm thinking about what they were doing last week, and I'm just sensing it in real time. All right, let's take it a step further. Think of some places where you've been during the holidays. Generally, at one time or another, you go to church. Well, before the holiday, what does the outside feel like? Feels okay. What about the inside? Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm going to say that it feels a little stuffy in there because of the air or something like that. But let me just ask you this question. Doesn't it feel like a lot of people have been there many, many times? That's just the beginning of that feeling. Some religious places feel phenomenal. You walk in and you could just sense there's something different about that particular place compared to somewhere else. All right, let's take this another direction. You go out for a walk, you walk into the woods. I used to do a lot of trail walking, and there are times you start to walk into the woods and there's just a calmness that's there. You start to notice, hey, there's something here. There's something living. There's something breathing in these woods. Sometimes you might even pick up on the sense that something's over there. If you look to the side, all of a sudden there was an animal that was just staring right at you. Or you might come to a spot and that particular spot just feels naturally good to you. So you're not sure why, but there's something to it. At some point in the future, we're probably going to be talking about places in nature and how to find power spots and things like that. Just be ready. We'll get to that conversation in later episodes. But for today, just notice that things that we've all been noticing our whole life really do exist. Now, people will tell you, hey, no, they don't exist. They only exist in your own mind. And I'm going to say, you know what? No problem with trying to agree with them. But what I am going to say is this: I want you to take your time and try to see and test things for yourself. I can't stress this enough on every single podcast that I do. Listen to the things I have to say, but test them out for yourself. See what works, see what doesn't work. Don't be afraid to use it, and don't be afraid to not use it. You're not going to offend me. I want you to test each and everything that I go over. See if it works for you. If it does, definitely use it. All right, let's get back to nature. You come walking out of the woods, and what do you end up feeling? Calm. Feels good. Maybe you walk another 30 or 40 feet and you finally get to your car. What happens there? The energy kind of drops off a little. It kind of like you let go. From that point on, and the following day, you go to your office. Maybe there's a heaviness in the office. Well, you know what? You could go ask a maintenance man, hey, is there something wrong with the air conditioning? And if he says no, everything's working fine, well, maybe the office just carries a bit of heaviness. That's energy too. The main thing I want you to do is walk away from this part of this episode is this. Notice that there's differences from the different places you go, different people that you meet, different situations that you get near. When you learn how to pay attention to the differences, that's what's going to help you hone your intuition and start moving along, working in tandem with the universe instead of just being a person who's pushed along with no real idea of what's going on or why they're there. Exercise 2, this week's practice. Okay, let's give you a little exercise to work on this week. I think everyone likes a little bit of exercise. What I'd like you to do is just go somewhere. I don't care where. You can go somewhere in nature. You can go to the mall. Find a spot and get comfortable. Uncross your arms. And when you cross your arms, it tends to block things to the connection centers of your body. So put your hands down at your sides or rest them on the arms of a chair. Close your eyes for a second. Relax. Just start to notice the room around you. What do you feel? Do you feel some heat? Do you feel a sense of something nearby? No problem. Just notice. Open your eyes. Get a sense where everything's at. Now, change your location. I'd like you to go about 20 or 30 feet away. Go sit in a different chair. Go to a different part of the mall. Wherever you are, just move. Close your eyes again. Take your time. See what else you can sense. See if you can start to notice some type of a push or something that's a little bit different than the room itself. I want you to focus right now just to notice that there's a difference. When you notice these differences, you're going to realize that some of them are pretty good and some of them don't feel so good. Think about when you get near a person you care about. Do you notice a difference right there? Absolutely. I'm going to give you my favorite example. I could be sitting in a chair just finishing up with work, a couple of dozen things on my mind, and all of a sudden, here comes my dog. She jumps right on top of me, and yep, she's all excited. She's happy. But let me say this, I can sense just this area around here, there's something there, something that's just happy and glad. And all of a sudden, I start to notice that my thinking about work, that feeling I'm picking up on in my chest or stomach area, it just starts to go away. I ended up having a completely different outlook 2 minutes after my dog jumps on me. So that's how I want you to start looking this week. I want you to start looking for some things like this. Notice the examples, especially the examples of the differences. How you felt before you closed your eyes, how your hands felt, things like that. We're going to get into a lot of things over a lot of podcasts. But you know what? Right now, it's a good idea to just start to notice the differences of life. You'll notice sometimes that when you're near something like a flower, you start to sense something around it. When you're near a table, and it's not quite the same. Think about that for a second. What's the difference? One of them's a living, thriving kind of thing, and the other, well, the energy's still there, but just not as strong. Maybe it's an not really actively living, intelligent thing. It just exists. So start to think about that. Here's a bonus. I've talked about walking half speed before. Try that this week. When you're out walking and you just slow the way down a little bit. See if you start picking up on some of the differences. Maybe you'll notice when the car is coming near you. Maybe you'll notice a bird flying by. Maybe you'll just notice that something's there before you see it. And yes, you'll find out. Yes, that particular thing is right there. Okay. As always, I want to say thank you for listening to this episode. Here's what I want you to walk away with today. The things you've been sensing about with your whole life, the rooms that felt off, the spaces that were peaceful, the people that felt warm before they even said a word. Those things are real. You weren't imagining them. You were picking up on that energy. You were doing exactly what this whole journey is about. And now you have a little more language for it, a little more permission to trust what you feel. The proof, as always, is in the results. Try the exercises. Notice the differences. See what you can sense. I can't stress this enough. Don't just take my word for any of it. Test it out on yourself. See what works. See what doesn't. That's how this works. That's always how this works. Feel free to support the show and the website. Every little bit helps keep these episodes going. And if you'd like to give something back and help with keeping things move forward, just pop your email address in at the website, mysticaljourneyswithjace.com. That way I can let you know when we're going to be doing some group workshops and things like that. We've got a lot of things coming up in the future, and there's going to be a lot of fun. Not to mention, when you put your email in the address bar, you're going to begin to meet other people at some of these online workshops, and you're going to be able to really connect with them. And that's also going to be something special, too. Okay, well, until next week, keep curious. Have some fun with this one, and don't be afraid to see if you start to notice some differences in just everything that's around you. I definitely do, and I hope you do too. Thank you.